We now come to business questions. I call the Deputy Shadow Leader, Nick Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I please ask the Leader of the House for the forthcoming business?
Leader of the House.
Speaker, the business for the week commencing the 6th of May will include, on Monday the 6th, the House will not be sitting; Tuesday the 7th of May, a general debate on defence; Wednesday the 8th of May, consideration in committee of the Finance No. 2 bill; Thursday the 9th of May, general debate on miners and mining communities, followed by a general debate on the BBC mid-term charter review. The subjects for these debates were determined by the Backbench Business Committee. Friday the 10th of May, the House will not be sitting. The provisional business for the week commencing the 13th of May includes, on Monday the 13th, a motion to approve the draft procurement regulations 2024, followed by a motion to approve the draft agricultural de-linked payments reductions England regulations 2024, followed by a debate on a motion on risk-based exclusion of members of Parliament. Tuesday the 14th of May, motion to approve the draft Trade Union and Labour Relations Consolidation Act 1992, amendment of Schedule A2 Order 2024, followed by a motion to approve the draft Code of Practice on fair and transparent distribution of tips. Wednesday the 15th of May, remaining stages of the Criminal Justice Bill, Day 1. Thursday the 16th of May, business to be determined by the Backbench Business Committee. Friday the 17th of May, private members' bills.
Can I thank the Leader of the House for the forthcoming business? Mr. Speaker, I would like to pay tribute to the former member for Hazel Grove, Lord Stunnell, who sadly passed away this week. Our thoughts are with his family and his friends. I'd like to welcome onto our benches the member for Central Suffolk and North Ipswich. His words on how the government has run down our NHS speak for millions. It's remarkable that the Conservative majority of 80 has been almost halved in 4 years. This week there's been a victory for the victims of the infected blood scandal regarding the deadline for compensation. I want to thank my friend, the Right Honourable Member for Kingston upon Hull North, for her tireless work on this cause. Can the Leader of the House outline when the timetable will be set out for compensation? Closer to home, people across South Wales are troubled by the job losses at Tata Steel in Port Talbot. Will the government work with Tata to ensure that compulsory redundancies will be avoided? Time is of the essence, and there are worried steelworker families across South Wales. Looking at the business for next week, it's light, with no votes until Wednesday. Now, we can guess why the Prime Minister would want to keep his parliamentary colleagues off the estate then. The internal politics of the Tory party has become so febrile, it's getting in the way of good governance. Whilst our constituents face ever higher bills, this government has simply run out of steam. Tomorrow, we will hear the verdict of the voters. In recent months, we've begun to see the runners and riders for the next Tory leadership contest. The Leader of the House says she has the Prime Minister's back. Coincidentally, she has been supporting her colleagues up and down the country. So, following on from schnapps with shaps, can we look forward to gin with Genric or maybe Pimm's with Penny? So I'm a Scrabble fan, but there's a new game of political Cluedo coming along. Who could be the one to strike the fatal blow against the Prime Minister? Will it be cocktails with Kemi in the garden, or my money is on the Leader of the House with the sharpened Telegraph column in the drawing room? Another possible leadership contender is Foreign Secretary Lord Cameron. Has he recused himself from parts of his role? This point was raised twice last week at Cabinet Office questions, with no clarity provided. Our parliamentary scrutiny is weakened when the Foreign Secretary is out of reach in the other place. Lord Cameron has unanswered questions from members of this House. He has yet to reply to my letters asking about his time at scandal-hit Greensill Capital. One question was around his use of private planes and personal taxation. Now, we've learned this week that Lord Cameron still enjoys VIP air travel. Taxpayers had to foot the bill for his trip to Central Asia in a luxurious private jet. How does the Leader of the House think this looks to struggling families across our country dealing with a cost of living crisis? So, we wish the Leader of the House, the Foreign Secretary and fellow leadership rivals well. We may well see them touring the TV studios. The Prime Minister has hinted that he may call a general election this summer if his party performs well today, or he may cling on as the clock runs down. Mr. Speaker, you can understand the Prime Minister's hope that something will crop up. But after 14 years in charge, it's clear that it's time for change. Each Thursday morning, the Leader of the House puts on a good turn. Some say it's a dress rehearsal for the following Wednesday lunchtime. Who knows? This time, it may come to pass.
Leader of the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I would like to join with the honourable gentleman in paying tribute to Lord Stanwell of Hazel Grove, who sadly passed away on Monday. He entered the House of Commons in 1997, leaving for the Lords in 2015. He was Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government in the coalition government, and I know all sides of the House will mourn his loss. On our side of the House, we are particularly grateful to him for being an effective and collaborative minister in the coalition, working alongside colleagues to bring in the Localism Act and drawing up the National Planning Policy Framework. And I hope that the many tributes paid to him in the coming days will be a comfort to his loved ones. Could I also join with the many remarks made by colleagues regarding the tragic loss of Daniel Angerin and also the incident in Sheffield? My thoughts, and I'm sure of the whole House, are with all those affected, especially Daniel's family. And could I also pay tribute to the police for their courage? They often get a hard time by us in this place, but we should never forget the risks they take and the service that they do us. And I know that the House will also be glad to see His Majesty the King out and about with the public again. And can I wish all candidates in today's elections good luck. The honourable gentleman tempts me, but I am going to resist, because there is nothing I could say that would be more detrimental to the honourable member for Central Suffolk and North Ipswich, to his character, his integrity, his standing in his community and his future prospects than what he has done to himself. And I think that is just about dawning on him. I too welcome the progress on the infected blood issue. He knows that the Paymaster General will have set out the timetable 20th of May for the body to be established, and we now have a clear timetable that I hope will give confidence to all those infected and affected by this terrible scandal. I will certainly make sure his comments also on Tartar Steel are heard by the Secretary of State. I have to tell him and break it to him that it's not going to be Pims with Penny. I'm more of a pints with Penny person. But yes, I too have read that I'm to be installed, rather like a new boiler, into number 10 next week. And I have to say, Mr. Speaker, there is as much truth to these stories as there is in Labour's assurances to its business community that it isn't actually going to do the things it's been saying it's going to do and has promised its union paymasters. But let me say again, I support our Prime Minister, and I will continue to support him after this weekend and beyond, because his plan is working, and I'm going to do everything I can to ensure that Labour do not get a chance to wreck the nation again. This nation has chosen a new trajectory to protect its border, to enable growth, to trade more with the world, to strengthen its partnership with allies. Our exports are now at 2% above 2018 levels, with the fourth largest exporter overall, the largest net exporter of financial and insurance services in the world, Trade barriers have led to £15 billion uplift for UK businesses in the last 5 years, and since 2010, UK manufacturing growth is higher than any G7 nation. We are on the right path. We have to stick to it, and I don't want to give Labour the chance to unpick all we have done, from Brexit to trade union reforms. The honourable gentleman asked about a general election and whether something is going to crop up. I think something is going to crop up, because whether it's pensions, the NHS, rail, tax or welfare, the Labour Party claim they are going to do one thing but are planning another, and I think the public will see through this. It is the most audacious deception since the big bad wolf donned a Winceyette nightie and asked Little Red Riding Hood to admire his upper dentures. But unlike Red Riding Hood, the British people have met this wolf before, and they remember it doesn't end well. They remember how Labour disastrously ran our trains, and now we read this week that to improve efficiency, the Labour's plan is to have fewer trains. They remember MRSA-infected hospitals, and now they see the unforgivable state of the NHS in Wales, struggling with a reduced budget. It is Labour who are responsible for that. It is Labour that have cut the NHS budget. They remember Labour council tax hikes to pensioners and others on fixed incomes. It was the largest increase in their outgoings. In government, Labour doubled council tax, and in Wales they have tripled it. The British public will look at the league tables out today of councils, and they will notice the worst services are provided by Labour councils. Those with the highest tax are Labour local authorities. Those with the worst crime rates in their areas are Labour-controlled areas. And who has the lowest employment rate, the smallest pay packets, the worst NHS waiting lists in the whole of the UK? Labour-run Wales. Always. Every single time Labour are in office, every single time the British people give Labour a chance, they are worse off, poorer, less safe, more unemployed, badly served, the nation weaker. At least they are consistent, Mr. Speaker. Don't give them the chance to do it again. Further business will be announced in the usual way.
Father of the House, Sir Peter Bottomley.
Mr. Speaker, the question of local council elections were raised, and for those who want to see an amusement, read the Bible Society verse Acts 5, verse 41 in today's Times. I'm not suggesting my right home friend does it now. I walked here today through Victoria Tower Gardens, where it's still impossible to walk along the river because there are barricades around the Buxton Memorial, which are far too extensive. And if people care about memorials in Victoria Tower Gardens, they ought to make sure the gardens are properly accessible whenever possible. The Select Committee on the Holocaust Memorial Bill reported recently in House of Commons 121. In early day motion 711, I've drawn attention to the things which I've now put to my right honourable friend, not to answer today, but to say that before the government thinks of bringing the bill back to the chamber of the House of Commons, they do a number of things which are clearly indicated by the committee, and which I put to the government now. The first is to review security. We've had the Holocaust Memorial in Hyde Park covered over because of marches going on around London. Everyone knows that a memorial in Victoria Tower Gardens of the kind proposed would be a major target, and the only way of providing security is to exclude the public from this park, which is the only park local for the local residents. We know the National Infrastructure Commission have said that the project is undeliverable. Will the government please ask the National Infrastructure Commission if they've changed their mind? Last year, the National Audit Office reported that the costs have gone up in 1 year from 102 million to 137 million. Will they ask if that can be reviewed? And how will the Chancellor agree to pay between £5 and £10 million running costs? I think the government ought to delay, do what's suggested in the earlier motion, and then report back to the House, please.
Father of the House, putting for an adjournment debate might be more helpful, I think. Leader of the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure that the honourable gentleman knows how to apply for a debate, and will listen to your encouragement. I will certainly make sure, as I do every week, that the Secretary of State will have heard the issues that he raises. I will feed that in. Just on the matter of security, he will know that there is a working group with the Houses of Parliament and those in government leading on this particular issue to make sure that all of these very important issues are looked at.
Peace spokesperson Deidre.
And Mr. Speaker, just when you think this government could stoop no lower, they released a sickening detention video using real-life trauma to show their voters how tough they are. Who instructed the civil service to produce such a piece? Can we have an apology from the Home Office for their appalling misjudgment in electioneering with this footage, and a debate on whether the concept of electoral purdah still exists, and if so, who the heck regulates it? Meanwhile, the disastrously handled Brexit border checks are causing further chaos as predicted. The leader may have seen the reports from the Sevington Inland Border Facility. Lorries with perishable goods, the prospect of rotting food and flowers being binned, compromised biosecurity and, of course, crashed IT systems. Confusion, delay, additional crippling costs, otherwise known as Brexit. Now, I was in the House yesterday for the statement the Business and Trade Secretary hurriedly brought out, and she seemed to brush aside these failures to prepare as mere supply chain issues, preferring to brag about Brexit. The thing is, her figures rely on a growth in service exports, so city pals are doing very well. Meanwhile, the British Chambers of Commerce, who know a thing or two about this, described this much warned of mess at Sevington as the straw that breaks the camel's back of many UK businesses. This is terribly serious for our SMEs and our farmers and fishers in particular. Does this government care? For the third time, Mr. Speaker, I ask the leader for an urgent debate specifically on this Tory trade tax so someone can be held responsible to this House for this cack-handed mess. Will she take it up? Now, it seems business questions have become nothing more than a venue for parading opinions. However, as Madam Deputy Speaker had to remind the Leader and Shadow Leader last week, business questions is about the business of this House. So can we leave the scripted opinions on Scotland and her government to one side for once and have a debate in this government's time focused on the unbelievable mess at Sevington and its impact on the wider supply chain? Or will she too just ignore this crisis of her own government's making, raise a laugh for her nervous backbenchers and opine on Scotland instead? A country about which she knows little and cares less.
The House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the first issue the Honourable Lady raises is, if I can term a matter of taste, about videos that I understand the Home Office have produced showing, I assume as for reassurance of the British public, that those that do not have right to remain here are deported, and there are images of people being put into the back of police vehicles. Scotland has produced quite a few similar videos, although the people being put into the back of police cars have been members of the SNP. But I will certainly make sure that the Home Secretary has heard the Honourable Lady's concerns and that they are taken into account. The Honourable Lady asserts various things about the border operating model. Many of the things that she is pointing to are not true. The system has not gone down, or any of those other issues that I think her party have been reporting. There are some customers that are having issues, but those are being resolved. And I would really hope that the SNP will one day acknowledge the hard work of their business community, including those that are providing services and exporting services around the world. Yes, we are the largest net exporter of financial services, of insurance services, and many of those businesses are in the Honourable Lady's constituency and surrounding area. Edinburgh is the second largest financial centre in Europe, second only to the City of London. I think that is something to be immensely proud of. The work that we are doing, not just on trade deals, but on our memorandums of understanding, for example, with the United States at state level, means that it is easier for an accountant in her constituency to work on a project in the United States than it is for an accountant in the state next door. That is something to be celebrated and has led to us being the fourth largest exporter overall. I do hope that the Honourable Lady might reflect on that and consider it in her exchange with me next week.
Sir Alec Shelbrooke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud of the work that myself and colleagues across the House, along with our dear departed friend Sir David Amos did in raising the issue of endometriosis. It's a terrible disease and it affects millions of women across the country. But it's only been since we've started to raise the issues around it that the profile of it has risen. And I'm surprised to learn just how many young women don't know about the disease. And looking into sex and health education at schools, it's not actually a curriculum activity. So can I ask my honourable friend whether we can have a debate about, through the Education Department, about making sure that there's a curriculum issue for gynecological diseases to both girls and boys, so that everybody can understand the disease. Because, Mr. Speaker, if you don't know that a disease exists, how do you know you may have it?
And I thank my right honourable friend for all the work that he is doing alongside the all-party parliamentary group to raise awareness of this condition and to ensure that there is improving care. He will know that we've invested £25 million to roll out women's health hubs across the country to not just tackle backlogs but also provide information and raise awareness. And I will make sure that the Secretary of State has heard what he has said today with regard to education.
Chair of the Backbench Committee, Ian Mearns.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, can I apologise to the House for my absence in the last 2 weeks. I'm glad to say things are improving as we've been dealing with a very difficult family situation. Could I, just to give an advance notice, the Leader of the House was kind enough to mention that the Backbench Business Committee have been allocated Thursday the 16th of May, and it would be our intention to put on a debate on the Parliamentary Ombudsman's report on state pension age for women on that afternoon. All chamber slots up to the Whitsun recess are now pre-allocated, but we still have several Westminster Hall slots to allocate on the new improved time of 12:30 big start in Westminster, and that seems to be working quite well, Mr. Speaker. So I think we do have 3 slots between now and the Whitsun recess to allocate in Westminster Hall, so we would very much welcome applications for those. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure you would agree with me when we will say to the Honourable Gentleman there is no need for him to apologise, and I hope that he heard all our good wishes to him and his family during the time that he was away. And I would thank him again for the advert that he has given for forthcoming business for the backbench business debates. I think that the subject of the WASPI women is a topic that many members of the House will will welcome and will want to attend and take part in that. And we should thank him also for being greatly responsible for the new innovation of the new time, which he has also advertised today.
Alicia.
Speaker, Transport for the East Midlands has found that 60% of drivers felt unsafe driving on the A1, and over half reported either being in an accident or seeing someone and knowing someone who had been in one. In 2022, there were 500 collisions on the A1. That's 26% more than the A5 and 16% more than the A2. So can we please have a debate in government time discussing safety upgrades to this road, which affects dozens of constituencies? It's the longest road in this country. And can my right honourable friend also kindly advise when we expect to see the next review of whether A roads can be upgraded to motorways, because this is absolutely the #1 issue for my constituents. I have sat on many a school run, sat in the A1, sat in traffic after appalling accidents that take 1 or 2 days to clear.
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for the work that she is doing on this issue, which is of huge importance to her constituents, and her diligence in raising it consistently with government. She will know that the next draft of the roads investment strategy, which will cover the period 2025 to 2030, will be published shortly, and I will make sure that the Secretary of State for Transport has heard what she has said today. And I also understand that the Minister for Roads is going to be happy to meet with the Honourable Lady to discuss these specific concerns.
We're a Hobbs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I first thank her for her kind words regarding Lord Stanley of Hazel Grove. We lost a wonderful friend and colleague who, until the very end, campaigned for his community and called out injustices across the country, and my sincere condolences go to his family in this sad time. Mr. Speaker, we Liberal Democrats have for many years called for tougher controls of UK arms export to make sure that they are not used in human rights abuses. We have called for a presumption of denial to apply to countries whose governments are listed in the Foreign Office's annual Human Rights and Democracy report. A presumption of denial would mean that the default position of the UK government is not to permit arms exports. For many years, the Foreign Office has actually listed human rights issues and that the Israeli government carried out in the Palestinian-occupied territories. And in light of a possibly imminent humanitarian catastrophe in Rafah, if the Israeli government is carrying out its threat to attack, can we have an urgent debate in government time about UK arms exports to the Middle East?
Well, I want to send our thoughts with, to all of the Liberal Democrats. I know they have lost a very treasured member of their party, and it is said of him he was the activist's activist, and I know that he will be greatly missed. With regard to UK arms export control, she will know that we have very stringent policies in this country, and that the actions that are taken stemming from those policies are scrutinised by this House. It is something we take incredibly seriously. With regards to the specifics, I would also point her to the fact that we have seen Israel to have to defend itself against the most unwarranted and reckless attack from Iran. It is very important not only that we say Israel has a right to defend itself, but because it is one of our allies and partners, we also understand our obligations to enable them to do so. But these are very difficult matters, and she will know that both the government's policy and the procedures that are in this House to scrutinise the actions that come from that policy are very stringent indeed.
Sir Lane Saxby.
Mr Speaker, the long call by Anne Cleves was written about my North Devon constituency and filmed there. Inspired by the Woodyard Community Centre in the novel, a number of third sector organisations are looking to support and bring together different third sector groups into a safe and accessible space for work, ideally breathing life back into one of the derelict buildings, which North Devon has far too many of. Might my right honourable friend lend her signature to a copy of the novel for the charities involved to help raise much needed funds, as well as help secure a debate in government time on how we can ensure small third sector organisations best work together to share administrative costs?
Well, can I thank the Honourable Lady for, again, attending business questions to shine a spotlight on some very good work going on in her constituency. I will be very happy to do as she asks, and thank her for bringing this very interesting initiative and the work of third sector organisations in her constituency to the House's attention.
Tonia Antoniazzi.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker. 3 members of the Williams family in Gwent, in my constituency, have had their HMRC contact address changed to the same unknown address without their knowledge, consent or authorisation, as well as raising clear GDPR concerns. This is having huge implications on DWP issues that they've got and impacting on their credit score. I've seen the HMRC response to the mother's complaint, which gave no answers. I've seen all the correspondence. They've had bailiffs, phone calls. They are scared. They are capable, competent people, unable to get a response. So I'd like to ask the Leader of the House, does she share my concerns over a serious data breach, and will she alert and raise this with the relevant ministers and departments and advise me on how to resolve this issue?
Sorry to hear that the Honourable Lady's constituents are suffering in this way. It sounds a completely bonkers situation, and if she will give me further details after business questions, we'll get it sorted this afternoon. They shouldn't have to put up with that.
Mr Speaker, the honourable gentleman opposite seems to be really pleased with their new recruit. It will make absolutely no difference to their voting figures because the gentleman that has moved sides is rarely in this House, so it will make not one jot of difference. But I've spoken before about my Marriage and Civil Partnerships Minimum Age Act, which came into force in February last year, making it a criminal offence to exploit vulnerable children by arranging for them to be married. I've spoken to teachers and lecturers who know nothing about it. So we must ensure that teachers, lecturers, faith leaders and the police know how to spot the signs of potential forced or arranged marriages. Could the leader speak with her colleagues across government to ensure that we get these messages across much more effectively to communities throughout the country?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for all the work that she has done in this area. She has campaigned on this diligently and has made a huge difference to the lives of many people. The Forced Marriage Unit, which is a joint unit between the FCDO and the Home Office, is leading on the government's work in this area and is running outreach, casework, and operates both inside and outside of the UK. I will make sure that the relevant minister and officials have heard her suggestions as to how their work can be enhanced.
Thomas.
Mr. Speaker, the situation in Gaza continues to be profoundly disturbing. We need a humanitarian ceasefire, all the hostages brought home, and no IDF incursion into Rafah, which would be catastrophic. Specifically on UNRWA, though, which is pivotal to avoiding famine in Gaza and to the Palestinians' future more generally. Could we have a debate in government time on why ministers won't yet restart funding it again to UNRWA, given the call of no less than the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres for donors to restart funding UNRWA?
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for raising these very concerning matters, and I will certainly make sure that the Foreign Secretary has heard the concerns that he has raised today. Aside from these immediate issues and the issues the honourable gentleman is primarily focused on, UNRWA has for a long time been a very financially fragile organisation with little long-term financial planning and security running forward. I think there will be many issues that the Foreign Secretary and his team will want to consider before taking a decision on whether or not to restart funding.
Nick Fletcher.
Yeah, there is a school in Doncaster called Hayfield Lane Primary School. It's a great school. It's got a great head, Mrs Tempest, great teachers and wonderful children. Sadly, the Labour Mayor of the Labour-controlled Doncaster Council has failed this great school. The Labour's mayor's dither and delay is a disaster, and it's affecting our children now. Despite many years of letters, phone calls, meetings and false promises, the school still has a leaky roof, soaked carpets, water in the electric system, mould in the classrooms and a smell of damp throughout. It's a disgrace that this mayor is allowed to subject our most vulnerable, our children, to this. Can we have a debate on the need for elected mayors to step up and do their job of maintaining schools like Hayfield Lane Primary, instead of constantly blaming this government for their own shortcomings?
Well, can I thank the honourable gentleman for standing up and campaigning on behalf of parents and children in his constituency. His local authority have been allocated $900,000 for this financial year to prioritise across its schools, including the school he mentions, and that's on top of the school rebuilding programme, which is transforming buildings across the country, including 3 in the Doncaster local authority area. I know the honourable gentleman has raised and campaigned on this matter considerably, and he will know that where there are serious problems with school buildings and the responsible bodies that are supposed to be looking after them fail, the Department for Education will provide additional advice and support on a case-by-case basis. I will write to the Secretary of State for Education this afternoon and ask that her department meet with the honourable gentleman to discuss this very serious matter. Doncaster Local Authority are failing in their duties and it needs to be addressed.
Patrick Brady.
Mr. Speaker, she's announced all kinds of worthy general debates and statutory instruments, plenty of time for dissolution and wash-up if need be, but she hasn't announced any opposition days. Now, she'll be in receipt of the letter from the Chair of the Procedure Committee, which says that if the Government has specific proposals in relation to changes that it envisages to standing orders to opposition days, it would be willing to examine and consult on those proposals. But it says, in the meantime, we expect that the Government will not hold hostage the scheduling of further opposition days on the completion of any such work, as to do so would be profoundly unfair on opposition parties. Can she confirm that she is not holding opposition days hostage?
I can confirm that, and I hope to be able to reschedule some more debates soon, but I think that we do also want some assurances about the processes that will govern them. It is incredibly important, I know that everyone agrees on this matter, that the rights of minority parties should be protected in this place. That is the point of those debates, and we should have confidence about having them in the future.
Vital. Ellis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Can we have a debate on anti-Semitism at UK universities? There are reports in today's press that some groups wish to actually replicate American-style protests where we've seen rioting and criminal damage. And at Columbia, they have chanted terrorist slogans. At Stanford, they have worn Hamas headbands. At Princeton, they've actually flown the Hezbollah flag. At Harvard, they tore down the Stars and Stripes and raised a foreign one. And at George Washington, they called for the final solution and posted signs that they wouldn't disperse until Jews go back to their real homes. We don't want this type of terrorist-supporting delinquency in this country at UK universities, and will she agree that the government and opposition parties must combine to do everything they can to stop such things happening here?
Well, my right honourable friend is right to draw attention to the disgusting scenes that we have seen in some universities in the United States, and I think those activities are being met with the appropriate action, and I think some universities have taken a very strict stance with regard to that. I think and I hope that all UK universities will be in no doubt about their responsibilities to all that attend their campuses and their facilities, but in particular those communities that are feeling particularly under attack. That is what we expect of them, and we hope and expect that they will meet any such notion of similar protests with an extremely strict response.
Tansing Desi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As recently reported by The Standard, the Slough Observer and other media outlets, serious bribery allegations against Slough Borough councillors heading up the planning process are extremely concerning. After months of complaints and rumours circulating around the town to restore public trust and confidence in elected representatives, does the Leader of the House not agree that it's critical that the police it delves deeply into the matter and does a thorough investigation, not questioning under oath those credible businesses who have been brave enough to put their concerns in writing, as well as those accused of bribery, would be a huge disservice to democracy? And would the Leader also ensure that the Home Secretary takes an active interest in this critical matter?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm responsible for many things, but operational police matters is not one of them. But I will certainly make sure that the Home Secretary has heard what he has said.
Virginia Crosby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The UK hedgehog population is in sharp decline. And next week is Hedgehog Awareness Week and an opportunity to promote the plight of this beloved, iconic species. It costs around £50 to look after a hedgehog from admission to rescue. Anglesey Hedgehog Rescue is run by brilliant volunteers Sue Timperley, Debbie Evans and Chris Mead, and to raise funds they are running a Name the Hedgehog competition. Would the Leader take part, and what would her hedgehog name be?
Well, can I first congratulate my honourable friend for raising awareness about this much-loved critter, and also congratulate the local volunteers from Anglesey Hedgehog Rescue, and I wish them well in their endeavours. Given that these little creatures are prickly, they move very slowly, definitely below 20 miles an hour, and curl into a ball when challenged. I'm tempted to say Welsh Labour would be an appropriate name for them, but that would perhaps be doing the hoglet a disservice. So instead, given that both of our constituencies are by the sea, how about urchin?
Neil Hamley.
Mr. Speaker, Yesterday's judgment from the President of the Family Division of the High Court concerning the practices of online Singapore-registered gender GP set out the following facts. Testosterone was prescribed to a 15-year-old girl with comorbid diagnosis of autism and anorexia in a negligent approach that led to dangerously high serum levels, placing her at risk of sudden death. There was no physical examination, extremely poor quality psychological assessment, no record of counselling or informed consent, and an NHS paediatrician checked the reference of her serum levels against that of an adult male. I've asked this before, but these scandals keep happening, and I will continue to raise them in this place. Can we have a full debate on how we extract gender ideology's influence from our public bodies, government policy, and protect young people from these online charlatans?
Well, I'm very sorry to hear about the specific case that the Honourable Gentleman raises, and it is right that we have the same scrutiny on this particular medical area as we do in any other medical area and any other practice, whether it is in the NHS or in private practice. I will make sure that the Secretary of State has heard the particular case and what he has said today. He will know that she is working with regard to the jurisdiction that she has in the NHS to ensure that healthcare professionals and the bodies that scrutinise them know what their responsibilities are, particularly in this area.
Drew Jones.
I recently met with local constituency group called Pumping Marvellous, which is a support group for people with heart failure. Members talked about how the NHS services they use could be improved through integration, specifically through digitisation, enabling better patient record access. Now, the Chancellor announced £3.4 billion for increased NHS digital investment in the budget and how that would unlock £35 billion worth of savings. So can we have a debate on NHS digitisation so that we can explore the benefits for patients, the benefits for doctors and nurses, and also make sure that the voices of support groups and users are heard?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for raising this? We know that where good reforms have been brought in, that patient outcomes are vastly improved, and in all of our practices in primary care, but also particularly in our hospitals, we will all have good examples of that. We want to ensure that is speeded up. We also want to make sure that the advantages of artificial intelligence to really help people tailor particular treatments and interventions to increase further good patient outcomes is the opportunities are massive. I think it is a very good topic for a debate, and the honourable gentleman will know how to apply for one.
Kevin Brannan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Has she had a chance to read the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Music, which I chair's report on artificial intelligence in music, which came out this week? And if she hasn't, would she like me to send her a copy so she might consider it for a debate in government time? It's a key issue, and it's important that while this technology can bring great benefits, we must not allow it to be our master. It should be a servant of human creativity, and the creator community should have the right to protect their creations, any scheme that's agreed between industry and tech firms. So would she have a look at it and consider a debate?
Well, can I congratulate the honourable gentleman and his colleagues on producing this report. It is timely and necessary, and I'm sure will be of interest to many members of this House. I would be delighted to receive a copy, and I will certainly make sure that the Secretary of State also has a copy, and that I invite her to follow up with the honourable gentleman.
Mr. Speaker, the APPG on HIV, AIDS and sexual health, which I co-chair, welcomed the recent publication by the Department of Health of the PrEP roadmap. However, knowledge about PrEP remains very low amongst certain groups, particularly in the BAME community and amongst women. So there is much more to do to raise awareness of PrEP and its possibilities. will my right honourable friend facilitate a meeting between the APPG, the HIV groups and the Minister for Public Health to see what we can do to tackle these inequalities in the use of PrEP?
Well, can I thank my right honourable friend for raising this? We have made huge progress and enabled people to protect themselves through access to PrEP, but he is right to show that awareness of the opportunity that provides people is not universally known. So I will make sure that the Department for Health have heard his concerns today and encourage them to do as the honourable gentleman asks.
Doran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this week we have seen the incredible bravery of Metropolitan Police officers from Hainault who literally ran towards a situation where they were aware that by doing so they put themselves in personal danger and at serious risk of injury or death. In doing so, 2 police officers received very serious life-changing injuries. We all owe a debt of gratitude to all police officers who on a daily basis place themselves in those circumstances to keep us all safe. Mr. Speaker, this debt must also extend to obtaining justice to police officers who have lost their lives whilst on duty. The 17th of April marked the 40th anniversary of the murder of WPC Yvonne Fletcher, who was shot in the back and murdered from shots from inside the Libyan People's Bureau in 1984. Despite the identity of one of the offenders being known, no one has ever been charged in connection with the murder of Yvonne. May we have a debate in government time about the circumstances surrounding the murder of WPC Fletcher?
Can I firstly thank the honourable gentleman for saying what he did about those Metropolitan Police officers and the police in general. I'm sure the whole House would want to send their good wishes to those officers. They will have heard the update that the Met Chief gave on their condition, and I hope that all members would join with me in wishing them a speedy recovery, and I hope they're out of hospital soon. I will certainly make sure that both the Foreign Secretary and the Home Secretary have heard what the honourable gentleman has said. He will know that ministers work on this issue, and where they are able to have bilaterals with others who may be able to assist in this area, they do, and it is part of the script that they use when they are having those meetings. But I will make sure they've heard what he has said today.
Rob Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week I went to the final of the Aylesbury Vale Young Enterprise Company of the Year at Aylesbury Vale Academy. The winners were a team from Aylesbury Grammar School who had produced and sold biodegradable greetings cards that have seeds implanted in them that you can then plant to grow wild flowers. So will my right honourable friend join me in congratulating them and indeed all the other Young Enterprise finalists? And could we have a debate in government time to underline the importance of teaching the value of the private sector and the valuable role of business in creating jobs, generating wealth and enabling the economic growth that pays for public services?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend, firstly, for allowing us all to send our congratulations to Aylesbury Grammar School and all those that enabled this good initiative to take place. It sounds a fantastic product. Perhaps the House of Commons gift shop would want to make use to it, but also for allowing us all to reflect on the force for good in the world that enterprise and businesses in our local communities, supporting the charity sector, but of course the enormous revenues that they raise to keep everything that matters to us going.
Joel Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Following the Aberfan disaster in October 1966, donations from around the world were used to build the Aberfan and Merthyr Vale Community Centre. The centre has been managed by a leisure trust and it's home to a library, gym and swimming pool, and until 2 days ago faced possible closure. Despite this, the trustees, none of them local, refused to engage with me, trade unions, their own staff, residents, and only engaged with the local authority at the 11th hour. So please could we have a debate on how charity trustees who hold cherished local assets can be held to account?
I'm very sorry to hear about the situation in the honourable gentleman's constituency. losing any community facility is not good for a community, but one with such heritage and hopes for a legacy that it might deliver for its local community, I think is a very upsetting situation for his community to find themselves in. He will know how to apply for a debate, and I would encourage him to continue his work to bring the trustees of the organisation together with the community. When that happens, solutions are found. He will know that the Department for Levelling Up has enabled asset transfers and other things to happen to enable such facilities to continue going, and my office stands ready to assist him in any way I can to get him the right advice.
Gideon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government's long-term plan for towns will ensure that local people can develop plans that deliver the priorities of their community and are given the tools to change their town's long-term future. Better access to finance for micro-businesses and social enterprises is a critical element of such plan, and the government could facilitate this through changes to financial regulations. Will the Leader of the House allocate government time for a debate on the future of community enterprise and community lending, including Bank of Day-style initiatives that drive local growth?
Well, my honourable friend raises some very good points and some very good ideas. She will know that the next questions to the Chancellor will be on the 7th of May, and I would encourage her to raise those matters with him there, and I will give him the heads up today to ensure that he has heard what the Honourable Lady has said, the very sensible suggestions she has made.
Jamie Stowe.
Mr. Speaker, as a founder member of the Scottish Constitutional Convention, as the only member of the present Commons whose signature is on Scotland's claim of right, I do know one or two things about devolution. Indeed, very shortly now it will be the 25th anniversary of the first sitting of the Scottish Parliament. So could I politely ask, could we have a debate on how Scottish devolution came into being, the ideals that lay behind it, and how the present Scottish Government is undermining those first ideals?
Well, I thank the Honourable Gentleman. It's a very good suggestion for a debate, and I'm sure it would be well attended. Having headed up organisations which are UK-wide, particularly in healthcare, I think one of the strengths of having different systems and different governance that reflect different parts of the UK is that they work together, they learn from each other. Our 4 chief medical officers, for example, working together. But of course, when devolution was envisaged, it was envisaged that 4 nations would work together for the common good and the good of their citizens. We know that is not the interpretation of that opportunity that the SNP has taken, and I think that is a very good debate. I encourage him to apply for it, and if he does, I will attend it.
Kirsten Buck.
Mr. Speaker, other than London, Aberdeen has got the highest proportion of non-UK born citizens anywhere in this island. Today the Home Office looks set to remove and detain someone who has fled persecution in their home country and has begun to build a life in Aberdeen. Right now the people of the My City are out in the streets making clear that refugees are welcome in Aberdeen. What can I do to ensure that if someone is detained and removed from Aberdeen, they are given basic human necessities, such as water, on the hours-long journey away from our city? And what can I do to ensure that their MP is updated by the Home Office and that the Home Office answers their questions in relation to this detention?
Well, the Honourable Lady will know that the Home Office will always talk to members of this House about constituency cases, whatever the nature of those cases. But it is very clear that we can only, with the finite resource we have, be able to do and honour our obligations to those seeking asylum here if we are able to have an asylum system that can actually deal with the volume of people coming in. We should be using those finite resources in the way that helps people, but we can also choose which individuals we want to help and ensure that people who have leave to remain here are or who don't have leave to remain here do not remain in this country. That is what this democratic parliament has decided to do. It is because the British people wish us to do it, and the Honourable Lady ought to reflect on that.
Drew Bridget.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There are a number of bodies that the public rely on to be impartial and to protect the public interests. The General Medical Council, the Solicitors Regulatory Authority and the Civil Aviation Authority, to name but three. When independent regulators take monies from the World Economic Forum or other vested interests, they lose their independence, Mr. Speaker. So can we have a statement from the Minister as to how we're going to end regulatory capture, something we've seen at the Medicines and Healthcare Product Regulatory Agency with disastrous consequences? And can the Minister explain why in its guidance to so-called independent regulators it regards their regulation as a tool of government?
Well, regulators have very clear responsibilities. That is very well understood. Members of this House will work with them on a whole raft of issues to raise concerns about the sector that they cover and how they're operating in their local area. I think if the Honourable Gentleman has any specific charges about a regulator not doing its job, it will know that the Department for Business is shortly going to be bringing forth a white paper about how we improve regulators in the UK. We're always interested in as to what can be improved, but he's made quite a serious allegation today, and he should follow it up with the Secretary of State.
Christian Jardine.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, as millions of people across England and Wales are going to vote in council elections today, I wonder if the Leader of the House would join me in recognising the work of my constituent, the Lord Provost of Edinburgh, the Right Honourable Robert Aldridge, who this week marks 40 years of continuous service as a councillor in Edinburgh, a longevity that's the envy of many others in Scottish politics, and I'm sure will be the ambition of many of those who are starting their career today. But like this place and other parts of our democracy, councils do not always reflect the diversity of their area. In 2022, the Local Government Association found that 92% of councillors are white, 40% retired, 46% had caring responsibilities, and just 12% had a disability. So could we perhaps have a debate in government time on how we make local government roles more accessible and more representative of the communities?
Well, I'm sure on behalf of everyone in the Chamber and the whole House, we would send our congratulations to Councillor Robert Aldridge on this landmark anniversary, and thank him for both his service but also his stamina in the role. The Honourable Lady raises a very important point. We want many people from many different backgrounds and with many different skills to come forward and run for office. I think it's an excellent topic for a debate. She will know how to apply for one, but we of course can also in our communities encourage people to come forward and step up and serve.
Mr. Speaker, as a child of the 70s, I'm certain that the Leader of the House will value and remember fondly the performances of AC/DC. She may not know, however, that AC/DC frontman Bon Scott is no less than a child of Angus Kirriemuir in particular. So I'm certain the Leader of the House will wish to welcome the Bonfest Festival this weekend, wish them every success and congratulate DD8 Music on the promotion of this tremendous international music festival. One thing, though, that does cause problems for music festivals across this island is Brexit obstructions that prevent many musicians from coming from the EU to perform in Scotland, and Scottish musicians and English musicians from performing in the EU. So does she agree with me that we should really have a debate on government time about how we can best reconcile that situation in the Brexit reality that we find ourselves in?
Well, firstly, I would just say to the Honourable Gentleman, he will not be surprised that I'm going to disagree with his characterisation that the UK's choice to leave the European Union was, in fact, a highway to hell. But I will make sure that the relevant minister has heard his concerns, and, of course, wish everyone involved in this, what sounds like a very jolly festival, congratulations, and I hope a good time is had by all.
Richard Ford.
Speaker, today we read in the press that the oil and gas company Shell will take some of its bumper profits creamed off the top of people's soaring energy bills and use it for share buybacks. Shell plans to start a £2.8 billion share buyback scheme to inflate their own share price rather than help tackle the climate emergency or boost our economy. A 4% tax on share buybacks, as proposed by the Liberal Democrats, could raise about £2 billion per annum for our public services. So please can we have a debate on share buybacks and the potential benefits of such a levy?
Well, he will know that any such proposals that the Liberal Democrats wish to forward, they can question the Chancellor on next Tuesday when the House returns. But he will also know that this government has done a huge amount of work, both with energy companies and their suppliers, to assist on alleviating the cost of living issues households and businesses are facing at the moment.
Jim Shaw.
Thank you. Strongest legs in the chamber, without a doubt. Can I thank the Leader of the House for the opportunity to highlight prevention of violations of freedom of religion and belief. It's been almost a year, indeed it's been more than a year since the outbreak of the civil war in Sudan. Certainly Sudanese civilians bear the brunt of the atrocities committed due to fighting, with thousands killed and literally millions internally displaced. While Her Majesty's government is working along with others to resolve the crisis, the vulnerability of Sudanese Christians has been overlooked. Christians in their churches are being targeted. There have been reports of rape, kidnap and looting against Christians. Even when the war ends, religious minorities still fear for persecution for the future. So will the Leader of the House join me in condemning these atrocities against Christians in Sudan? And what can the Leader of the House do with the FCDO, Secretary of State and Government to combat these crimes as they work to find a solution to the conflict that we have? Mr. Speaker, thank you so much.
Well, can I thank the Honourable Gentleman again for raising awareness of an issue which has affected enormous numbers of people but does not necessarily get the airtime on with the UK media that it perhaps warrants. He will know that the Foreign Secretary and the Minister covering this region are very focused on ensuring they will do all they can to ensure that civilians are protected and that security issues are properly addressed. And as part of that, he will know that the work that the Religious Freedom Envoy and the team that supports that post are doing, they will be very focused on this particular matter. As I always do, I will make sure that the Foreign Secretary has heard his concerns, and I thank him.
Please, business question.